Coming to you live from Radio Cayman Studio.
For the record.
For the record. Hear from your government officials, independents, and the opposition on issues that matter to you. The record. Engage in an open dialogue between residents and lawmakers.
For the record.
The record. Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record. And now, your host, Orit Connor.
Good morning and welcome to For the Record. Today being the 16th of September 2016. I trust that you had a wonderful night, wonderful evening and night yesterday, and that you woke up this morning really ready to take on all of the challenges and to solve all of the problems of this world. I want to thank you for allowing Radio Cayman and by extension For the Record into your homes, into your vehicles as you traverse the roads of the Cayman Islands, into your places of work, whether it be an office cubicle or if you're working in the outdoors. For the Record is a show produced by the staff and the management of Radio Cayman, and it is geared towards keeping you abreast of issues as they arise and play out on the local, regional, and international scene. I am your host, Orit Connor, and you're welcome to join me every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 7:30 a.m. until 9:30 a.m. Our phone lines are always open. There is always someone there waiting to take your calls. You can join in the conversation by calling us on our toll-free number provided courtesy of Flow. That toll-free number is 1-800-534-8255. You can also call us on 949-8037 and 949-6990. Of course, if you don't like to talk on the telephone, you then may email us at For the Record. That is one word, For the Record, at CANDW.KY. This morning being Friday, we have in the studio with us the leader of the opposition, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, also with us, former MLA, former minister, former deputy premier, Mr. Ralston Anglin. Gentlemen, good morning. Welcome again back to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. Thank you for having us. OC, before we begin this morning, I want to put on record our condolences and speak to the loss of three senior members of our community. One is family to me, and that was Mrs. Loris Ebanks. She passed away yesterday. That's about something minutes to 8. And then we had Mr. Wentworth Ebanks, whose funeral is going to be 4 o'clock this afternoon. That's Carlin Powery, Judah Powery's father, Carlin Powery's father-in-law. And there was Mr. Ewart, a well-known veteran and a well-known carpenter, construction man in West Bay, good family man. These are a great loss. They're all up in their years. Mr. Ewart being 96, a very tough man, but he was a good father. Mary, he was a personal friend of mine, although of course he was much older than myself, and cousin Loris was, as I say, she's a cousin of ours, been ill for several months, passed away, all gone on to a place that Jesus said he had went to prepare for us. And we want to offer our condolences to all the family in our community in West Bay, but of course there are other family members. And there are other families who are suffering grief this morning. The Scott family, Mr. Samuel's wife.
Yes.
That family, we all know them well, those boys. And we all know about their business in Little Cayman, where she worked at, and so we want to offer our condolences to Maxine and her brothers and other family members there in Little Cayman and Cayman Brack, and of course there are others, and we offer the same condolences to them throughout the islands. A lot of our senior citizens are passing on, and I thought we needed to take the time to highlight it this morning.
Certainly.
We'll see, to begin with, I see that the PPM in their adverts, so many adverts very early in the election, all that speaks to and tells me is that this is a weak government trying to shoulder up their record. I see the PPM is bragging about GDP. So they have now sent their numbers man to talk about quantitative numbers. Well, we know that economists and people who have such degrees likes to talk about these quantitative numbers, but we are interested in the quality of people's lives. That is what makes a difference. And we are saying that the quality of people's lives has deteriorated under the PPM. The PPM is out of touch with the reality. They are bragging about some 2% given to people, raise given to people, but see $40 on a person making $2,000 per month is really nothing to rely on in this kind of high cost of living environment. And it is a very high cost of living, and they have refused to cut the burden as we said we would do once the budget got back in a surplus position. They would not cut it where it matters. They have cut some areas which we said we would cut also. But of course, that has had little effect on people's burden and the suffering that we are experiencing in this country, serious suffering. And I'm wondering whether, although they talk about numbers, I'm wondering whether they have looked at their own statistics, which they have published in the compendium of statistics. In a nutshell, when you look at it, when we took office, you want to look at it, when we took office in 2009, the GDP, the productivity, was at $70,329 per worker. We increased it to $73,359 per worker by 2014 when we left office, 2013 when we left office, an increase of 4.3%. That's a fact. That's published by them. That's not McKeever figures. That's the PPM figures. Under the PPM, it has dropped to $70,576 per worker, a decrease of 3.8 figures. Again, this is not my figures. These are figures coming from the PPM's release of statistics, meaning the state of affairs in the country. Mm-hmm. In layman's terms, they have increased the employed labor force from 36,000 to 106. Yes, increase it to 39,138, an increase of 3,032 people. But they are producing less. That's what this means. All they are doing is flooding the islands with cheap labor, which, if you hold the argument, is taking opportunities and employment away from Caymanians. But the bigger problem is the need to spend more on infrastructure from having more people on island, and that is a fact. And when we increase our people, we have a need. When we increase the population, we have a need to increase infrastructure. This is a fact in a developing country. And the massive election year spending on roads so that they can look like they are doing something is proof. And while liars may figures don't lie. The road development leads to a kind of employment need for work permits in the country that do not make the spend in the economy here, the local spend, to increase the gross domestic product, the GDP. So the figures from the compendium of statistics is proof. These, as I said, are PPM figures. It says, what it says is, if you look at it, the UDP, in spite of what they are trying to tell people in their ads, because they're aimed at us, aimed at me, aimed at us, the UDP or the CDP. The UDP increased back then the productivity, and the PPM reduced it to continue flooding the islands with people that do not spend, do not have it to spend. And this is not progressive. This is madness. So the PPM is spending a lot of money on adverts, which criticizes the UDP. But are they telling the truth? Are they lessening the real problems facing our people? No, they are bringing more and more red tape to hamper our people and are not addressing the situations which are hurting our people and not helping small businesses. Nor Caymanians who are trying to get into small business, they are not doing any of those things in a manner that have satisfied the situation to bring Caymanians into a better position. Caymanians are worse off. They are worse off since the PPM took power in 2013. And all I say to that is, if that's what people want, if Caymanians want more of the same, well, they can support the PPM with their adverts. But the hard, cold facts are more Caymanians are hurting. More Caymanians today are literally everywhere begging. At the supermarkets, they beg you. They even at funerals, they remind you and beg you. On the streets, they stop you and beg you. Going to offices and begging. Things are the best. So the PPM says the things are the best that ever been. Is that so? I doubt it. More Caymanians are in problems, are out of work. With the highest amount of work permits ever, while there are hundreds or thousands, still thousands of Caymanians out of work. They can say what they like for whatever reasons they are. So more Caymanians have lost their businesses with the PPM in power. More Caymanians have lost their homes with PPM in power. More Caymanians have lost their investments in the land they were purchasing through a bank with PPM in power. More Caymanians lost their trucks and cars, their vehicles, with PPM in power. More Caymanians are without food, without shelter, and can't pay their bills with PPM in power. The PPM is doing nothing that has helped our people to get out of the morass that they have found themselves in.
Folks, I want to remind you that you're listening to For the Record. I am your host, Stuart Connor, and my guest in the studio with me this morning, Leader of the Opposition, the Honourable W. McKeever Bush, and Mr. Ralston Anglin. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back immediately after this commercial break. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. We have one caller on hold. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, Mr. O.C. How are you, sir?
Fine, sir. Morning. How are you?
Mr. Bush, good morning. How are you, sir?
Good morning to you.
And Mr. Ralston, how are you?
Very good. How are you?
I got a very important question, and, I'm not going to education. So the three of you can tell me, because I would like to know the one-man, one-vote situation. I live in Bordentown. Like I say, I went to school half a day, and when I went, they were closed, so I don't know. I thought, as a voter, that I would have access to all the candidates that running in Bordentown, and then I would be able to choose from them which one I would vote for.
Yeah.
But suppose
what gave you that impression, caller?
Okay, well, just 1 minute, let me explain to you. Suppose I have to go to vote at Bordentown West, and the candidates that are running there, I don't like neither one of them. I don't want to vote for neither one of them. I don't have. You're telling me now that I have the right. I must vote for one of them.
Oh, yes?
Yes.
If you want to vote, and you should vote.
But isn't that taking away my rights as a voter?
Sure it is. In my opinion, and I said that, no, OC's going to disagree with you, with me. Because he promotes one man, one vote. But all that has done is lessen Caymanians, taking away Caymanians where they had four, where you had four, now you only got one. They say that better? Well, I can tell OC and I can tell anybody else. That is certainly, if I have something that I think four is good for me. If I have four apples, put it simply, if I have four apples or 4 mangoes, and you take away 3, you certainly taking away from me. OC,
I would like to ask the question.
But what happened to the man that only has 1 mango?
Where
rather than 4. What happens to the man that only has one man going north side or eastern rather than one?
I'm going to hold an argument. That is no right to change the entire Cayman Islands.
But caller, my original question to you: what gave you that impression?
Yes.
Tell me what gave you that impression.
The impression is that, sir, Mr. Connor, I believe that I have the rights to vote for who I want to. And if you are telling me that I have to vote for someone that I don't want to vote for, that is taking away my rights as a voter, and I have the rights to vote.
But you do have the right to vote for whom you want to in your district. Don't get lost in the forest because you can't see the trees, right, caller?
Yeah.
You do have the right to vote to choose the person that you want to vote for in your district, depending on who runs in that district, just as obtains now.
Yeah, but Mr. Connor, the point I'm saying is that
it's just that the net is not as wide as it was.
The choices. What are you doing from
net is not as wide.
What are you doing from the caller? What's happening with the caller? Yes, caller.
Can I say?
Yeah, we'll let you finish, and because we have the mic, so we'll let you finish, and then we can always discuss it.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would like to talk, and then you all can hang up and fight it out.
Sure.
Because
You shouldn't throw hot sand then run, you know.
Martin Luther King fought for the rights of people to vote. Now you can tell me now that the two candidates. Suppose I got to go to the agriculture ground to vote, okay? And the two candidates that is there, I don't want to vote for neither one of them. So I don't want you to tell me. That's not right. That's not right. I thought that if I had to select, I'm in Bordentown, and I got access to all of the candidates, I can choose which one I want. That would have been better, because I hear a lot of people sitting there voting. A lot of people, this going to be a mess, because there was a meeting last night, and there was about 8 or 9 people there, and they say they're not voting because they have the same idea that I have. If I go there and the person that I want to vote for is not there, I can't vote. That's taking away my human rights. Isn't that true?
No, it isn't. That's not taking away your human rights, caller.
You take away your rights, yes. It's taking away your rights. I can disagree. I am going to call if you ever shuts off whenever you want to shut off. But let me just say, you, as far as I'm concerned, what they have done with you is take away a right that you had, yes. You had a right to vote for 4, and now you only got a right to vote for 1.
And you still have the right to vote.
But you still have a right to vote. It's up to you to choose that person. Now, in the choice that we have presently, we could still vote for 1 person out of the 4. That was a choice too. You didn't have to vote for 4 people. You know, 3 people or 2 people. You could have voted for 1 person. So that was a choice you had. But my whole argument on this is, and I will see, and nobody else going to change this, there was nothing wrong with the present system. It has worked well for this country. There is nothing wrong. They have talked about bringing us in like the rest of the world. We can get like the rest of the world. We just saw what happened with the rest of the world when we brought in the recognizing same-sex unions, and anybody can say what they like. That board has recognized same-sex unions, all because we want to be like the rest of the world. But what it's doing for the rest of Caymanians is putting us in a worse position.
Okay, caller, we're going to ask you to leave us there. We're going to dwell on your points a little bit later on as well, but we have one more caller, and we're going to try to accommodate that caller before we go to the news break. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen. Number 1.
Good morning, number 1. How you doing?
Good morning, my friend.
Up to Marcus, number 1, your back foot.
I hear you up there, boy.
What are you talking about, same-sex union?
Yes.
I hope Alden not going to make that pass here, or that governor.
Well, they say it's not passed, but all I can tell you is that the board has recognized it, so I don't know what they want to call that.
What kind of board? A 2x4?
No, the government board.
Oh, so that's 4x6?
Call it what you will.
Well, I tell you what, anyone that make it pass yesterday, what list? I said it. And listen, when it comes to this one man, one vote, give you a vote. Okay? Yes. But don't tell me who in my district that I can't vote for. That is communism. I don't care who like it, whether it's England, the Queen, the Prime Minister, the Governor, you, anyone. That's taking away my right.
I agree with you.
Okay. Thank you, caller.
I agree with you.
That's what I love about you and OC. You just love people to get off. All right, OC, I sure thank
Take
you.
care.
too.
Take care. Take
All
care.
right,
Yeah.
good.
Yes,
Have a good day, my friend.
Yes. You know, people keep emphasizing this point that you can't tell me who I can't vote for. It's not. It's not about that. It is telling you who you can vote for, not who you can't vote for, but who you can vote for, because those are the people that are running in your district. The other caller refers to the fact of, well, if I go and I vote at the agriculture ground,
Right.
it has nothing to do with where you go to vote. It has to do with the area within which you live,
Right.
and the persons who choose to put themselves up as candidates in those districts. And one of the other points, coming right to you, Mr. Anglin, real quick, one of the other points that I want to make is that voters have never had the choice of who should run in their districts. The candidates make that themselves. You have a say in it in terms of the nomination process,
right on that,
but you have never had a choice in terms of who should run in your district.
Because people run in districts that they don't live.
Yes,
Correct.
Yes, Mr.
Correct.
Anglin.
But why is voting rights important? Voting rights are important, OC, and we keep. You said something very important. Oh, okay.
We're going to have to go break for the 8 o'clock news now. When we come back, we're going to start off with Mr. Ralston Anglin. Please stay tuned for the record. We'll be back shortly. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. I am your host, Stuart Connor. My guest in studio with me this morning, Honorable W. McKeever Bush, Leader of the Opposition, and Mr. Ralston Anglin. For those of you, I believe we would have given a traffic report again. For those of you who may see traffic a little bit slower than usual, I am made to understand that earlier there was a fender bender somewhere around Hurley's Grand Harbor. So that may be one of the reasons why traffic is backed up this morning. We're going to get back to the whole topic of one person, one vote. Before I do that, one of our listeners has sent an email and says, Mr. Bush, I have a mid-sized local company here on this island. We were here after Ivan. We supply materials for buildings. We are having the best year since Ivan. I don't know what's going on, but I am voting PPM for sure.
Well, that's their choice. While at the time that person can say so, and I'm glad to hear that, there are many that can't say that, and there are many, many people. I am just saying that there are many, many people. This is no put on. I know what ends up at my doorstep. I know what man on the street is happening with the man on the street. I know the families that are suffering. What I'm saying plainly is that people are hurting more than ever before.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
Mr. Yes, sir. I interrupted you to go to the news. So.
Right, and two things, right? We've had two very important issues brought up, but we need to get back to Mr. Bush's opening, which was to do with this true state of our economy and what's happening, and digging into the numbers versus just believing the selective numbers that the government chooses to tell and publish. Not publish, but focus on in their statements. But the whole one man, one vote issue is one that really we got to take a step back and try and figure out what are we trying to do. And unfortunately, I'll say in my opinion, when we took a position on this as a party, we tried to draw this back and say, okay, what is the problem that we're trying to solve? Because you can make a change, there's usually some problem that you're trying to solve. So the first argument came forward that, Northside and East End are small districts whose population didn't justify any more than one member. So now, Bordentown, Georgetown, West Bay, and the sister islands of Cayman, Bracken, and Little Cayman should change their voting system because A, the UK does it that way, and B, East End and Northside, they only have one vote. But it's not that they only have one vote, but it's because their population only justifies one vote and one representative, therefore one vote. And so we took the view and we asked the question. We said, well, okay, why aren't we talking about the size of our population and whether this type of voting system suits small countries?
Yeah.
This type of voting system is not designed for small countries. In fact, I staunchly make the argument that it's not fit for purpose for any Caribbean countries, even the larger ones with 3 million people. Because you're still talking about parliaments that have such small numbers that really, when you talk about this form of governance that emanates from one man, one vote, and what it actually does to how government has to function, and then at the end result, what does that mean to productivity of politicians as they're interjected into the system to try and make a difference for their people? I will maintain forever that one man, one vote is a terrible thing for Cayman, right? But that's just me living through it. Now, here's what I believe, right? And people can criticize, and we all, and it's not because I've said it, and many other people have said it. I believe let's also make one other important point. When large countries like the UK tried to decide how they needed to vote to go from a monarchy to an electoral system where people had the power, not just dissentage and becoming king or queen meant you had the power, and then you could then appoint other people with some power under you. So you go now to a free system. And as they struggled through that, they then had to try and decide how they should divide their country and vote. And they divided their country and vote hundreds of years ago, usually along the lines of areas, because people in particular areas had particular needs, had particular economies. So your economy in an area that had coal mines was very different than your economy if you were in a industrialized area where financial services and banking and that sort of commerce dominated, versus another area of the country that may have had tourism and people would come to the coast to enjoy themselves. So people had little small bed and breakfasts and little small hotels popped up. Each one of those areas and those people in those areas had peculiar needs to be represented. Therefore, over the years, the system came out from it. Cayman doesn't have that. At the end of the day, if an MLA, let's deal with ministers, because ministers set policy and sit in cabinet. If a minister who happens to be from the District of Georgetown makes a bad decision, it's going to impact you in East End. And if you make a bad, if a bad decision is made on any of the 18 members, it impacts all of us because we only have 18,000 voters. Our whole entire voting system is smaller, not voting system, voting population is smaller than any constituency, even certainly in the UK, and smaller than most constituencies, even in medium-sized Caribbean countries. So my point has been very simple. If you wanted to equalize, if that was the aim of this, I think the public of this country, because of how small we are, should have gone to the polls and voted for all 18 or however many seats there are.
That might have been an option, yeah.
And simply everybody choose who should sit in our House of Assembly. And therefore, a lot of the dangers that you hear, everybody now shooing around talking about, boy, well, when you all were saying this, now we're seeing that maybe if somebody's going to flood an area with money, then money is really going to alter the outcome of an election, because if you only have 1,100 people, if only 75% show up to vote, if 4 people run, then you start watering it down. You realize how small a number somebody in one of these constituencies could actually win by.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that, because one of the tenets of one person, one vote, and we don't want to confuse the one person, one vote with the single member constituencies, is the whole principle of equal representation. And what you laid out there in terms of everyone being able to vote for all 18 members of our legislative assembly, that certainly would achieve the whole the concept of
and that was one of the options that we put out there from what, 10 years ago.
Yes. We have one caller. Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
To the
Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Akiva Bush, and good morning to Mr. Ralston Anglin.
Good morning, Mickey.
Before saying what I've got to say, I'd just like to something important. The 30 mile an hour speed limit sign in Savannah coming from down west, going up east area, it is totally hidden from sight by tree fronds, and this is for weeks now. The police drive by there every day. I'm not asking anyone that I see them. And the NRA, I'm sure, drives by there very often too. And nothing has been done about it. It's okay for us, Caymanians. We're used to
What do you say? What do you say is wrong with it, caller?
30
Sorry.
mile an hour speed limit sign is totally invisible. It is, you cannot see. Tree fronds and palm leaves and stuff are in front of it, hanging from trees.
Is that the one by Miss Audrey's house?
Yes, it would be about there, going into Savannah from west. And it's okay for us. We know where it is.
There are actually two. There's one by the rock wall, by Miss Rhoda, where Miss Rhoda used to stay, I think. And then when you go further up, there's another one by Miss Audrey's house. Two signs.
That one is invisible. Yeah. And something should be done about it. Tourists drive there every day. And one of them, in fact, mentioned that to me yesterday.
Okay.
And,
they probably got a ticket.
The thing is, with this one man, one vote, single member constituents, or single member district, they're calling it. This is what it really is going to be. We should have been putting that first when they were talking about it. And I stressed that people, they were just saying one man, one vote on the radio every day, and they talk about it in the papers. And instead of saying, firstly, it will be single-member districts with one man, one vote in each district. And this is where the problem now lies, where people are saying they're not going to vote. Trust me, a lot of people say that. They can't. What my friend George Gillette said a while ago, I'm sure it was him, that it takes away the right. It does, in a way. Think about this. You are no longer able to vote for someone who is not in that little district that you're in now, if you're in West Bay, Georgetown, Bordentown, or even Cayman back, that you always voted for, or you look forward to vote for. You may not be able to do it. And some people will not. The thing is this, you have now got to rely on that person to say, well, look, this is a good person, you can vote for them. So you've taken away that right. I had to say, no, I'm voting for you. I'm voting for you. We cannot deny that. That right is gone for many, many people. North Side and East End were once multi-member districts. I'm sure you all know that.
Yes.
Was there are as many as 3, I believe, in one of them, in the 1936 elections. We cannot deny the fact that it does take away some rights. What you have said a while ago to us is this, cutting it down to a little bit. This is what is the biggest issue with most people that I've heard and spoken and listened to in the meetings when they had them. That they don't want to know that the person that they voted for lost with much more votes than the guy next door who won with much less votes than their person in the same original district, which is now the multi-member district, and right across the road. And it is quite possible that that will happen. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. And that is the reason why I suggested resettling. And the other day, and I've suggested all the while, we should have started the campaign of letting people know exactly what it's all about a long time ago. We intended to do this and put it in place. Because, as I said, and I stress it again, I think we're going to get a lot of spoiled ballots, maybe more than good ballots. The other thing is this. Mr. Bush said something very important a while ago. You're all saying very important things. But one thing he said, like, oh, people are out of work. A lot of people are hurting a lot. Will this help people, Caymanians? Because foreigners living here, I'm sorry, the great people living here on work permits, but they should have a job. So if we can't count them in the unemployed statistics, I'm sorry, it should not be so, but I know it is so. Will this help Caymanians to get back to work? Will this give them more opportunities for jobs? Will it? I doubt it, but I'd like for you gentlemen to answer that. Maybe I'll hang up and listen on.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
caller.
for the usual
I
very
mean, it
cordial point.
certainly won't. But you don't do you use voting systems to determine whether or not a person is better off economically? You address that in other areas.
But that's
There are
what
other
but that's
laws
what you
and
do.
stuff
Though
like
you
that,
vote you vote for representative
Right.
can make it happen.
Yeah.
I think that's what
That's
Mr.
he was
Hurlston
getting
is
at.
saying.
Yes,
Yes.
he was
Well,
he
but
was leading
there
us
is
down
no
the path.
there is no guarantee that
Sure.
with the multi-member districts that you got that.
Sure. But Mr. Connor, the thing is, if we were looking to equalize, I just believe we went in the wrong direction. I think we went the wrong way for such a small country. 18,000 voters, smaller constituencies smaller than most places in terms of our total voting population. And we believed that somehow that slicing this up even thinner was going to mean that it was going to be better representation and better governance. I believe we're in for a big disappointment on that front, and I think the evidence is going to clearly show that. I think the public is now. Mickey is right that the conversation perhaps should have been, or a true education campaign should have been launched earlier. However, in all fairness, the whole situation was not really decided until very recently as well. But having said that, I don't think an education campaign is going to change people's minds. I think now that people are really understanding what the impact of this is, people are looking on and saying, this is not good for me. I don't see how this is good for Cayman. I don't see how this is good for our democracy. But let's wait and see. But if
the objective at the end of the day is to ensure that you participate in the process, then those persons who choose not to get out there and vote will only be cutting off their nose to spite their faces, and as a result of that, then they get the government that they deserve because they sit and do nothing.
True, but let's face it.
This thing about people not coming to vote is not the answer.
Right.
I must encourage people to come out to vote. Don't stay home. Please go out to vote. Staying home will get you the government that you might not want. You have to go out and make a choice.
But the fact of the matter is, OC, and let's look at that point. If we wanted to really be creative about how we get people out and engage people and get the best democracy possible, the more choice you give people, the more excited they are, the more people will show up to vote. Because ultimately, just as somebody said that they might not see any one person in the district of Bordentown, I think the caller said he was from, that he wanted to vote for in that single area. Somebody may not have saw anybody in any of the candidates in Bordentown in the last or the next election. But I tell you what, if you had a system where our people went to the polls and chose our 18 representatives, I bet you the odds that somebody was going to see somebody on that ballot that excited them to get out to vote. We would have seen increased participation, and in a small country, we should have a say because, plain and simple, what an MLA from any one district decides can impact this entire population. We're not some big country with districts that are so distinct and unique. And we fool people because politicians want this system because it's an easier system to manage. That's the other piece that we said from 10 years ago, more than 10, 11, 15 years ago, we said when this was first brought up, the person that wins, and this is the politician, because I can tell you right now, I only have to focus on a very small area of West Bay, okay? That's an easier task for me. I just don't think it's right or good for the people.
No, that's what I've
and so
always
therefore,
said.
I'm going to say what is my honest opinion.
That's what I've always said.
Your
this is not
point
making it easier for anybody, not making it better for nobody. This is making it better for an elected person. It's much better for an elected person, and that's good to an extent, but I certainly believe that don't help the country across the board.
Okay. We have one caller, and at some point in time, while we're on this subject, then we can probably talk about the some of the amendments to the election law, especially in relation to financing and what a candidate can spend. But let's grab the phone first. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. We're hardly hearing you.
Can you hear me better now?
Much
Yeah,
better.
yeah,
Yes.
Okay, I was on my headset trying to be safe on the roads, so I've pulled over.
Okay.
This is Kenneth Bryan, and good discussion this morning. I just want to add my 2 cents, so to speak.
Sure.
Remembering that obviously this is a democracy, and in democracy, majority rules. I think the problem that we have at hand is that the country truly doesn't know whether or not we have the majority. Because even when, in respect to single-member constituency and one man, one vote, because even when the referendum came, there was so much unfortunate politics involved in that, because I can remember quite clearly. Unfortunately, much of the reason why many people supported one man, one vote was they thought it was an element to get out the current government at the time, which is the Honorable now opposition leader, Mr. Bush. And voting for a system to get somebody out is obviously the wrong premise to do it in the first place. And now that, like you've discussed this morning, so many people have actually took proper analysis of it, their decisions might have changed. I don't know if any of you men on the panel today have recalled that some year and a half ago, I came on Cayman 27 and suggested to the government to please take a referendum because many people's positions have changed in respect to this view.
Yeah, you did. I remember.
And it would have been better that we truly understand what the people think about this new system. I don't know what the government is going to do. I don't know if they are conscious enough to rethink this process or not. Either way, I have no control over that.
No, it's
But
gone too far now.
In the event that it does go through, which most likely it will, I suggest that the government and maybe the opposition leader can move this motion to the House is, since we're going to the polls anyway, why not have a referendum question to it? At least we can truly see whether or not the people really supported it or not. Because I personally believe that, particularly with the party I was with, many people just trusted their leaders and didn't really put much thought into what it actually meant to say, okay, then I'm a progressive supporter and they say that we go in this direction, so we're going with it too. And I even remember having discussions with many of my members at that time saying, well, that's what they're doing, that's what I'm doing. And now after a reflection of it, they go, hold on, I didn't realize it was going to be this. So the truth is, do we really know today whether or not the majority of the Caymanian people actually support it?
No.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter either way. As long as the majority, that's what I believe in as a hopeful representative, whatever the majority believe. But truly, can we say today, we know what the majority feels? Unfortunately, that's the problem that we find ourselves in. If I can take 30 seconds to quickly add to your next discussion, which is the amendments that are coming up in the proposed election law. I have a major concern with the proposal. I think it's Clause 22, whereby the supervisor of elections will now have the authority to categorize independents who are working together as a party.
Yeah.
Now, I think that description or that categorization is quite unfair because the definition of a party means a whole lot different than a group of individuals working together. I understand the financial element of it that they're trying to avoid.
It's draconian. It's draconian.
I don't think it's. I think it's fair enough that they don't want to give a group of independents working together any more financial advantage over a party. That shouldn't be fair. But for you to categorize them as a party is a totally different thing.
Okay, caller, we're going to ask. Very quickly wrap up, please.
Okay, so basically, quickly, the negative connotation in some people's minds in our community that a party brings is not a good thing, and I think it would be unfair that if I truly believe to say, these gentlemen, we're all working because we have basically the same views, but we're not obligated to a party structure. It's two different things, and for you to deem me as a party, it would be unfair. Okay. Anyway, folks, I thank you for the time. OC, have a great day.
You too, Kenneth. Thank you very much. We have
Thank you for
callers.
your call. I just want to say I thought that Kenneth would have come on with us this morning, but you know, I guess the Premier has his views why he's saying this, and I'm waiting to hear why he's putting this kind of election law forward.
Yeah. I found that to be very extremely draconian. I can understand even if the legislation said that that he could treat them as a political party, but to actually deem them to be a political party. If you said in certain respects you could treat it as and even that would be stretching. Even that would be stretching.
Well, I don't
would
know
be
if
stretching
if
it.
the law says that you have to be a lawyer to practice law. You have to be an accountant to practice accounting. The law says there's laws that says that, right? So I guess what he's saying is, if you're saying that you are a group and you come together and you have a common manifesto, then you're not a group, you're a party. That, I guess that's what he said. I don't know. I'm waiting to hear what he says.
Yeah.
Phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Yeah, OC.
Yes.
One more time again. I'm going to just see how something to say, and then I'll hang up, and then I need you to answer me on this as well.
Sure.
Another situation with this one man, one vote is that the candidates, they can choose wherever they want to run, in which area, but the voters, they can't choose. Another thing that's not fair again.
That obtains under the current system that we have. That hasn't changed. That's the same system that we have now.
Just let me finish say something. I just spoke to four people. I just spoke to four people just now. And you know what they said to me? You know how this should be, this one man? That they can vote for anybody in East End, anybody West Bay.
That's the same thing Mr. Anglin said. Same thing Mr. Anglin said. Yes.
And four people just said the same thing there again.
Okay.
That you can choose to vote from me. So this all messed up.
Yeah.
They can choose where they want to run, but the voters can't choose where they want. But that's not fair to us.
Yeah. I just want to say also that we don't really have any empirical evidence in terms of how many people still don't understand the system. We have anecdotal, evidence of people saying, well, I'm confused, I don't know what. And this is where the job of the government, the supervisor of elections, and the politicians will come in to ensure. Because what we do not want to do is we do not want to underestimate and downplay and minimize the intellect of the Caymanian voting public. They are capable of understanding. I have seen it. You look at the results in all of the elections and see the small number of rejected or spoiled ballots that we have. So please do not downplay the intellect of the Caymanian voter.
I am not ever say that the
No,
people
I'm not saying that.
I'm not ever say that the people, my position is not that the people don't not understanding. I think the people are being shortchanged. I believe that the people is going to get less out of this than what they have now. I do not believe that this is going to work well for Cayman. That, as I said, in the, overall, our people as a whole, East End outside, got one representative. You get the service of who you elect. But I do not believe that the entire Cayman Islands is going to be any better off under the new system, and we will wait to see.
Yep. One more caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. How are you doing?
Fine, sir. Morning. How are you?
Good morning, Mr. Bush. I'm fine.
Good morning. Good morning.
I listened to the conversation here, and I hear several. But make I say something first. What a confused, brainwashed bunch of society or community we have in this Cayman Islands. There are people calling in saying, and not being disrespectful to people or my good friends and I hear calling in, but why do you want to vote for a person because of his personality or her personality? You have a choice to go out there and listen, to analyze what a candidate set up to run your country and protect or work for you. It's not about the personality of the person. It's about what that person wants to do for the Caymanian people. That's what we, the voters, need to look at, not the personality anymore. We have been voting for personality all our lives and getting, I don't want to say the word on the radio, but we all see that. And OC, I agree with you. The integrity or the smart intellect of the Caymanian people, we need to be more intelligent to who we're going to vote for and stop voting for color, stop voting for your friends and who you think is, Mr. Nice Guy and this. That does not make a proper representative or a leader of a country. It's what that person stands for.
I agree.
It's what that person can stand up and do for the country and the Caymanian people.
I agree with that point.
Especially the Caymanian people. So let's stop this thing about, can't vote for him. But suppose somebody in your area is a good candidate, whether you know him or not, whether you grew up with him or not, whether he eat out your pot, your grandmother pot, he might be a good candidate. Vote for him. You have to analyze now, gentlemen and women, not the personality, but what that person can do. Look at the track record of that person's life and how he lived, the integrity of that person, and what that person really means, transparency and everything else.
Yeah, and you have
But
an
not the
opportunity to
personality.
scrutinize that person much more closely, that individual,
Well,
as opposed to five of them.
Can I just
Exactly.
can I ask you,
I
caller?
hear the blackers the same thing up there, because the one living in the east can't vote for the man that running in the west. So what?
Caller, can I
Vote for that person that you think gonna make something that's gonna work for the Caymanian people. That's what it's all about.
Okay.
Voters. It's all about.
I agree with the
Caymanian
caller.
people.
Thank you very much, caller.
I agree with the caller on that point, because I lost my first election. I was young. I lost my first election. I did go for a purpose of changing certain voting patterns, right? But I was young. But and people told me, I said, hey, young man, you got some idea, but you're too young. We're not voting for you. Next time around, they voted for me, and they kept voting for me ever since. Because they proved that what I said I was going to do, I went in there and I stood up for their best interest. That's what people vote. And see what you just said, you don't know how profound that is. Don't underestimate what Caymanians can do and how they feel when they go into that booth. Don't underestimate it.
And let's not make the conversation get derailed. Nobody's talking about. Listen. I don't believe that we're going to have this mammoth of spoiled ballots, etc. I believe that people are going to get it and they're going to vote appropriately. That's not my concern.
No.
I want to go back to the caller's last point, and I just want to be this. We just have to be real. The problem is, members from the small districts enjoy their little situation where they don't have to satisfy a large number of people, and it is good for them, not good for Cayman. The last caller's point is the most important point, and he kept referring to the point: vote for someone who's going to do their best for the Caymanian people. And then he said the Cayman Islands. He never said his constituency. Let's just talk about the real stuff here now, OC. The real stuff is, when I was elected for 12 years, every time I looked at the budget, I tried to identify what was being done for West Bay as well. You think that now that we're going to have 19, that each of those people aren't going to be looking to try and prove and show why they deserve to be re-elected the next time, so that they can look out for the government to spend money in their little area versus looking national as to what's in the best interest of this little 2x4 island we got that's 22 miles long and 8 miles wide.
But there's only so much,
resources.
only so much that you can spend in there. At one point in time, there was this talk: we're going to have a boat ramp in every district. We're going to have a school in every district. We're going to have all of those.
We got that now?
Not necessarily.
We got that now?
Oh, see, let me tell you. Let me just tell you what the situation is. If you think some of that not gonna creep in,
it will.
You
It's
just
gonna be
it's gonna
exasperated.
creep in. It's going to creep in because already I'm hearing it.
Okay, let's grab 2 phone calls. Caller, good
I'm
morning.
hearing it already.
Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning to your guest there.
Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Charlene.
Ralston, I must say, I am for this one. This is my opinion now. I am for this one man, one vote. I know of other countries that do so, and it works. I know Switzerland does so every year because they send us the ballots, the forms to vote, and it works. The thing is, I've been begging since Ivan and even before, but my eyes opened even more after Ivan, after Red Cross that I was trained to work with in the school hall that has a capacity of 350. We have 4 elected members down here. I beg I'm asking again, if either one of you or both of you get back into government, would you see that West Bay have a multi-purpose hall for emergency for anything that the district or the island wants to have? The rest of Cayman has civic centers. We're the only district that don't have it. Another thing, our attractions, especially on this Turtle Farm Road, this road is filthy. Peter went out Saturday 3 weeks ago. Rotary was out 2 months before that. Peter went out Saturday. And just in one small area, he picked up 6 bags, huge bags of garbage. This is Cayman supposed to be kept clean. That's the way it was before I was born, you were born, Mr. McKeever was born. We need attention in West Bay, not on the radio about who's going to vote for who, because in my opinion, that's the right way to go.
Caller, we're going to ask you to leave us
change
there.
everything else. We change everything else. So why not go for a change?
Okay. Thank you very much, caller. We're
thank
going to ask
you.
you. We're going to ask you to leave us there. I just realized that we hadn't taken a break since about 8:30. We missed one of them, so we have to take a break now. One caller on hold. We're going to ask that caller to hang in there. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Good morning. Welcome back to For the Record. Going straight to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record. Good morning, caller. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello.
He's there.
Go right ahead, caller.
Yes, sir. How are you doing today?
I'm fine, sir. How are you?
Good. Mr. Connor, I'm replying in the question. When I spoke to you the other morning about the demonstration of the Christians in Bible teaching on the demonstration on Saturday evening, seemingly you and the other people who was there, when they spoke about the demonstration of these church people, seemingly their demonstration was of the Bible, and that was what it really was. The thing that kind of got under my skin was you were saying that, in other words, why the Christians don't get onto, in other words, why don't they get more? In other words, they seem like they don't get any, not in there. They seem like the country, they don't interested in the country, and
I don't recall saying that, but if you said I said so, I won't dispute it.
That is really the
From
they
district to
didn't
district.
see all of that. That's exactly seemed like what you were saying.
Okay.
But what I was going to saying is, in other words, and whoever was going with you, that in other words, the church is not, even though the people there, they don't seem to be interested in the country. But I'm saying that that is so wrong, because out of the church comes police, legislators, all the parts of the country are covered out of the church. Every person, every man in the country, professional and all, comes out of the church. But the church, they was demonstrating, covering our way of life, our profession. They're concerned about holding on our way of life, and which is more important to me, as far as I'm concerned, than anything else. I would like to hold on to my way of life rather than anything else. I hear a lot of things saying, and it seems like sometimes we are holding on some of the little things of life, and not realize. I would never give up my way of life under any circumstance. And our churches they're out there. They're demonstrating and teaching our people our way of life, because there's so many things that are being done that I think is so important for our younger people as they're coming up. The teaching of God's word, and that's the most important thing, one of the most important thing in our land, because if we are not going to do something to hold on and teach our young people, what are we going to expect? Aren't we expect our people are going to hold on to our way of life, or are we going to go on like in so many other nations? And I applaud the demonstration on Sunday of our people. Our pastors are teaching the people, and it was a demonstration of our people, and I applaud that. Okay. I applaud that as a people, and I saw the demonstration, and the speaker. We had a gentleman from the States. He spoke and told about the way of America, and applauded us to hold on, because someone spoke about the lady from Jamaica. I think that's like 5 Caribbean countries are facing the same problem, and we're not ready to turn off our way of life for nobody.
Thank you very much, caller. We're going to ask you to leave us there. And certainly just like to point out that the preamble to a Bill of Rights and all of those aspirational issue points that we have in there does speak about, our Caymanian way of life, our heritage and stuff like that. And certainly that is there. So, and respect has to be given to that. Let's take the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning again.
Very quickly, please, caller, because we have other people queued up.
Yes. I thank you for taking my call, and I thank you, all three of you, for listening. But I wasn't quite finished yet.
But we didn't.
Most important thing right now, I think, is to get jobs for Caymanians, opportunity for Caymanians, because it's so many of us that is without jobs, that can do the jobs, that can work, that want to work and can get to work, the professionals as well. I think we need to focus on that, and by saying that, we as a group is having a public meeting tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock to 10 o'clock at the Georgetown Town Hall, because we don't have any other place to use. Can't use West Bay because they charge us for it, and we don't have any money. We're jobless people. So I'm inviting everyone, the public, Mr. Ralston, Mr. McKeever, everyone. Georgetown Town Hall tomorrow evening, 5 to 10. You can come anytime you feel between 5 and 10.
Noted, caller.
I thank you for listening to me, and I thank you, both of you, McKeever and Ralston, also for listening to me.
And what is caller? If I may, the purpose of the meeting. What will the topics be?
The topics would be about labor and foreclosure.
Okay, got you. Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Next caller, please. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning again, gentlemen.
Morning again, sir.
The reason why I called back is I think people get confused sometimes, or misinterpret or misunderstand when I say something. If we say that our people have the integrity and intelligence, no doubt about that, to make decisions for themselves, and then we say we cannot vote, my good dear friend Mr. Stanley Hill is saying, just personalities, you must vote for someone who's going to do something for the island or for the people. Then we're more or less arguing with ourselves. If you have voted for someone for all these years and you assume that you have some level of intelligence and intellect, then there must be a reason why you vote for them, a sensible reason why. And this is the point I was making. You will not be able to vote for that person. No, if we're saying, yes, vote for someone who you think will do something, what happens if my boundary from my district, let us face facts, is district, and that is what I noticed that dear very valued West Bay lady just missed out a while ago, and she just said one man, one vote. She didn't say single member district, which is a vastly different thing when we add that to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's vastly different. And we could have avoided all this conversation we're having now if we had simply placed on that referendum one man, one vote, yes or no, single member districts, yes or no. We would have avoided it. Because we might have gotten a different answer. And we might have yes. But what I'm saying is this. If the guy across the road from me in the other boundary is the person I would really like to vote for, might not be the same person running forever. It might be a new person. I can't vote for him. And this is why I say it has created a confused state of mind in people, because that person might be very well, you might have a meeting right beside that boundary line, and that person could have a meeting at the same time, and you're listening and saying it's possible that, oh my God, listen to that guy, I'd really like to vote for him, but I can't.
Point well taken, caller.
That's
Thank you
what
very
I'm
much.
talking about.
Now there
smallness of the place.
well, there are people, for instance, I'm sure in Snug Harbor. Let's move a little further down Canal Point. And if we move a little further, probably nearer to the villas of the Galleon, who I am sure feel that Mr. Ralston Anglin and the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. McKeever Bush, are good politicians. They produce for their districts and everything else, and they would love to vote for them. They can't do that now if they're in Snug Harbor or if they're there. You know, people keep talking about these borders. You may believe and be convinced and assured that these two gentlemen make good politicians. They will get results. But if you're in Snug Harbor, you still cannot vote for them.
But if you went to my system, you could.
Yes.
Then that's
Your
the way-
system.
All of that is, see, they following your line of thinking, they think that way because we have produced.
Okay. But Mr. Connor,
Okay, we want to shift gears a little bit, I think, right?
Yeah. We had a number of issues brought up, and we're coming close, and time is running out. But a very important issue came out in a couple of calls, including when Brother John Jefferson Sr. just called in as well. And that is this whole issue about same-sex marriage, and how and what has transpired in Cayman, which is, as I said before, is clear as mud, because the government wants us to believe somehow that all is well and that there's no threat to our way of life. We have the definitions in the Constitution, we have the definition in the marriage law, and therefore nothing could be further from the truth. And that was the point that the Premier made, that don't make anybody fool you. But we have the leader of the opposition, when he got up, he spoke very eloquently and profoundly to the point, which is the recent ruling and decision to allow a same-sex couple to have a dependent on a work permit. Now, what is curious to me is that when you look at the the immigration law, and you look at the definition section, I think, Mr. Connor, you're the former chief immigration officer, so I think you are more qualified to speak to this point than any of us, really.
Okay, it says here in the definition section, dependent, and it gives you a definition of dependent. Dependent in relation to a person other than a person referred to in section 67, and we can look and see what section 67 says, means, and listen carefully to this, the spouse of that person or one of the following relations of that person, namely a child, a stepchild, adopted child, grandchild, parent, step-parent, grandparent, brother, sister, half-brother, half-sister, being in each case wholly or substantially dependent upon that person. Take note of the first one, means the spouse of that person, the spouse of that person. Now, if we look at our Constitution and the fact that we do not recognize that marriage is defined as a union between one man and one woman, that's the only way that you can be a spouse. I believe that the immigration board, in refusing the work permit, if they didn't use this clause, they should have said basically that the person does not fall under the definition of spouse in our immigration law and is not consistent with our Constitution in terms of being marriage being defined as between one man and one woman.
Correct.
Mr. Raleigh?
Correct. And if you look at Section 67 really just goes on to speak about other situations and clarifies what the chief immigration officer should do when a person is proven to be a Caymanian child, when a person is a visitor, how long you can have extensions. It then gets down to talking about what should also be considered in regards to a dependent, and that's where it really ties in, that the person should be a dependent of a Caymanian as to the character, health of the dependent, the ability of the Caymanian to adequately support the dependent, and the dependent is covered by health insurance. And then it goes on to reintroduce the fact that for this purpose, a parent, grandparent, brother, or sister can be, in those cases, who are wholly or substantially dependent on the Caymanian, can be considered for immigration purposes under Section 67. So it really, 67 in my mind, doesn't take anything away from those definitions, the definition you just read.
Yeah.
And let's be very clear, irrespective of which side of the fence you fall on this issue, the point you just made is a point in law. This is a point in law. Now we're saying under the immigration law, why would a decision like that be made? Not about our feelings, and let's remove the emotion. Let's stop thinking about, well, I support, I don't support. Let's look at the facts that are before us. And I tell you, when we were on one of the breaks and as we look through that definition, I think, your point is valid in it. And I think ultimately the board, this should have been allowed to go to the courts and make and ensure that the immigration law, the constitution order, and the marriage law in conjunction was clearly articulated before a court of law to demonstrate why the immigration board was right in the first instance in the refusal. But it never got to that point.
Right, and bear in mind that when our Bill of Rights came into effect, or before it came into effect, that we reviewed a lot of our laws to ensure that they were compatible with our Bill of Rights.
That's right. Absolutely.
We made sure of that.
And that's why I mean, this spouse section has been in the definitions forever.
Yes.
And I tell you, in terms of what dependent is, now one point that you raised, and I'm going to suggest to the honorable leader of the opposition, it'll be a point that he raises in the Legislative Assembly, because with the raft of legislation that the government is bringing, I think we've clearly articulated the fact that this is all about ticking boxes before the elections. So let's push as much legislation as we can through to say, oh, we did it, not that we made a difference or we did a good job or brought a proper piece of legislation. But we were searching for the definition of spouse. And why wouldn't we clearly articulate it? Yes. Now, one of the reasons we know it doesn't necessarily have to be is because the marriage law already says so and the Constitution already says so. Mm-hmm. And so naturally you have to refer back to the superior legislation That is the
But
Constitution.
we could even put it in here and say
But that's
spouse
your
means
point.
with that, what,
That's
what,
right.
what, you know, what is
What harm
outlined
does
in
it do, to your point, what harm would it do to actually put it in here and in the immigration law and clearly articulate what the definition is? And it has to repeat the Constitution because it can't contradict the Constitution.
We have one caller, but before I just want to interject this one additional point that we see in the news now, where there's a court order. A court has basically halted the deportation of 2 children back to, I believe it is Honduras. The immigration board refused for them to be added on to their parents' work permit, I believe it is, or to be at least to be in the Cayman Islands with their parents. And why? Because they didn't have sufficient financial resources
To support them.
to support them. Now,
Support the children.
now, protection of children, one of the basic fundamental tenets of our Constitution as well, protection of children. And you're going to separate children in that respect, especially if they're birth children of one of those parents. We have to get I think so, yeah.
Oh.
No. I maybe not one weren't came on. I have to read the article again.
Oh.
But again, it goes back to in terms of where are our priorities.
Yeah.
You know, where are we placing our priorities? Are we placing our priorities to defend the more vulnerable in our society?
It's
And
those
who can be more vulnerable than children?
Let's cut to the chase. It's those who have access to the courts and
Yes,
those who
ma'am.
have access to financial resources.
Yes.
That's what you're struggling to say, but I'll say it.
Let's go to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, sir. How are you?
Good, Steve McFeel here. Good morning, Mr. Bush, and good morning, Mr. Island.
Good morning.
I don't really want to get into the debate of what you're going on. I just want to say that the courts are correct in what they're doing. I had one of the first cases that before the court last year, where a young man brought his young daughter to the island, who had been abandoned by her biological mother. The mother had given him the child and says, "I can't take care of the child any longer," and so he had a work permit and to come to Cayman Islands to work. And his mother, who is a Caymanian, has Caymanian status, and his stepfather, who has Caymanian status, he lived with them. And he brought the girl. The girl was 5 years old, and the immigration wouldn't allow her to stay. And the reason why the immigration wouldn't allow her to stay was because he was not making $3,500 a month. Because that's the policy, it's not the law. It's a policy from the government that to have a dependent, and you have to make more than $3,500 a month. Have a dependent, that means a wife or a child. And I took the case to the court, and Mr. Justice Williams gave me allowed me to get a what I call a resident order, for the stepmother, for the grandmother, and her son to have the child stay here, because when you looked at their resources combined, they were making more than $3,500 a month. But the fundamental principle of the law is the child. The child is paramount, and some of our laws that we have put into place now runs repugnant and contrary to the Bill of Rights. And it seems to me that nobody is sitting down and clarifying all of those areas to clear them up. They're just letting all these cases fall where they may. And the courts have to step in and to do what the government has to do. And that is not right. But the court completely is right. That's number one. Number two is that you were discussing about political parties and independence. Well, all right, you have the Constitution. I know you have it there before you.
Right.
And I would like you to go look at what the Constitution says is the definition of a political party. And you look it up, and you can see.
Will do.
See? And you'll see it says where one or more people gather together to contest an election, it's a political party. or words to that effect.
That's correct.
That's right?
Yep.
Well, how can you be an independent if
We're
you're all
actually
fighting-
talking about the elections law.
Yes, yes. But how can you be an independent if you're banding together to fight an election, to contest an election? Under those circumstances, under those facts, the Constitution says that you are a political party. And so the election law is on reflecting what has already been set down in the Constitution.
Okay. I think we disagree. We disagree to the fact that it's not in the Constitution. We agree
What?
that that's in the elections law.
No.
Definition of political party.
What the Constitution said about a political party or a political party? There's a I can't remember. I think it's like 73 or whatever
Okay.
that says about a political party, or it's probably 59 when it talks about the election of the premier.
Oh, yes,
and then
yes. Go ahead, sir.
And so, and then the last thing, I just want to say this, and that the fundamental principles of democracy, the foundation of democracy, is equality of the elector to the elected.
Mm-hmm.
The equality of the elector to the elected. That means that every elector should be equal to the other one. So if you're going to have one elector voting for 4 people in one electoral district, you must have it in all districts. And if you can't have it in all districts, then everybody should be equal. And the way the system, the democratic system has developed, most all over the world, is one man, one vote. One person, one vote. Everybody is equal, and everybody is equal to the other person. And one person should not have more power to elect an elected person than the other person. And that is why you have one man, one vote, one person, one vote.
Okay, thank you very much,
Thank you.
Mr. Markfield, for that. Thank you very much.
Well,
go ahead, Mr. Anglin.
Well, I want to make sure we're very clear here, because the caller gave the impression that we were disagreeing with what the courts had decided. That's certainly not anything I heard you say. We were talking about the immigration.
I think he just said that the courts are right, absolutely right, but he didn't.
But he was talking about they were right in terms of the children. That's
Yes.
slightly different. We hadn't even gotten into that issue. You had just grazed it, and Mr. Corner, I just. The second thing is in regards to political parties and how people band together, there's going to have to be someone that makes a call, and we'll have to leave the premier and others to fight that out.
And to explain the reason in the LA.
And in terms of fundamental tenets, one thing about us as Caymanians, we always pick our arguments and debates and points to suit whatever issue or point we want to raise. I really don't care what the rest of the world is doing. When it suits us, we say we don't care what the rest of the world is doing. What's right, Cayman. Do what's right for Cayman. Quite frankly, democracy is about making sure that we have free and fair elections, and to achieve equality, to my mind, plain and simple, we're too small, in my opinion, and that everybody should have to choose who's going to be in that legislative assembly. Then you're going to have people fighting for Cayman. And I'm worried about it, as small as Cayman should be, we shouldn't really be worried about somebody fighting for a district. We should be fighting for Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
We're only 60,000 people, 18,000 voters. Yep. We need to fight for Cayman, not districts.
Okay, we have 2 callers. We're going to try to get them in as quickly as possible. Three, because our camera person has to leave.
Yeah.
But we may just go on without the camera.
So in my district, 12 or 1,300 people must choose me, and that's right. And according to this argument, in the smaller district, 300 people, 400 people choose one, and that is right. I don't think so. I don't think so.
Good point. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. Going to ask you to be as brief as possible because we're getting ready to close off and we have 3 callers.
Okay, I'll see. Good morning, McKeewa, and good morning, Bronson. Am I on now?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, okay. I listen to the discussions every day. I listen to you every day, OC, and I listen to everybody that gets on there.
Thank you.
One of the things that bothers me, and I would wish that we had within our laws that anybody who runs for office must sign some document that says if those people, and I'm going to use these words in a sense that anything that people do when they get in there, you see this stuff that happens in this world, in this island, and I'm so really tired, gentlemen, when I tell you that sometimes I cry about it when I see what's happening to this island. We need people in office who are truthful, honest, and truthfully care about this, honestly care about this island, and they should sign a pledge that if they embarrass themselves or this island in any way, they must resign. That would be one of the things that would keep us all straight, those who will get in there.
And who would determine who will determine what is embarrassment?
Oh, no. I'm not going to get into any details now, but
if you're placing such a high standard on a person to resign an office that they have run for and that people have voted them into that office, somebody has to be able to determine, when you have actually embarrassed the country.
See, ethics. Ethics is the word I'm gearing at. Ethics is what's important. If people are ethical, they're not going to embarrass their country or their constitution, their people in the district or their island. All I'm saying is we have these politicians that get up there, and the last time I called in, I asked McKeewa and Ralston, why do you, every time you get it all beaten up on this one, there's enough to go around for everybody. Everybody got their skeletons in their closet. Let's just talk about what is important.
So who did they beat up? They didn't beat up anyone this morning. Earlier they talked about the PPM and the adverts, and that was it.
I don't like, and that's why I refuse to go on. Is some of these callers who call in, and they are such big hypocrites. Bugsy was a candidate, and he done nothing but beat up on me. He got nowhere with it. And when I was a member of the House, he done a leader of the government, and in cabinet, he done nothing but come on this radio, and the next radio, and the next one he could find to beat up, and now he don't want nobody to beat up.
Go ahead, caller.
You are lying.
No. Let's not use that kind of terminology. Let's not use that kind of terminology. You can call me a liar if you want. Terminology, caller.
People know me, and people know you. People know who's lying.
Mickey, everything I say to you, I say it in front of your face, my friend.
Yeah, but you're not telling the truth. Nobody may say it in front of my face or behind my back.
I don't dislike you. I still see you as a good person. But what I'm saying is, we must stop this thing and beating up on each other because we're not
beating up on nobody. When somebody needs to be criticized because of a policy or an issue, then it is right that we as representatives look at the issue and talk about it, not necessarily beating up. What's beating up? If we come there and say the policy is wrong, and we look at it and tear it apart and look at it upside down and explain why it's wrong, is that beating up on someone? No.
Caller, ask you to leave us there. We're going to ask you to leave us there, caller.
Directing at you two.
Oh, we just said so?
We're going to ask you to leave us there, caller. Let's take the next caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning, OC. Again, it's Kenneth.
Good morning. Ask you to be brief.
Glad it's you and not me this morning. That being said, I understand that the attorney, Mr. Steve Maxfield, called in respect to the definition of what a party is in respect to the law. But it also says that in order for you to qualify to be a party, you have to register a manifesto. A constitution. My apologies. Now, this is where the crux of the matter comes into the difference between a group of independents and a party. That constitution and the bylaws within that constitution is where the control mechanisms are hidden. And it will take obviously a little bit longer for me to explain, and another time I'd be happy to. But the control mechanisms that says if you go against the party agenda, what repercussions are in place. And this is what many independent people don't want. So there's nothing wrong with us standing together and saying we will fight for what is right as long as what is presented is good. But there's no bylaws in any constitution within a party that says, well, if you go against the party's majority, how you will be penalized. And that's why you have so many people that are in parties today that go, I know that it's not right, but I don't want to go against my party. So there's a fundamental difference between a group of independents and a party that is registered with a constitution that has bylaws that have them obligated to the viewpoint of the majority of the party.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'd be happy to explain a lot better so people can understand. But in respect to the definition of what a party is, it goes a lot farther than simply a group of people standing together. Thanks again for taking my opportunity to talk about it. Hopefully you invite me on so I can explain more. Have a good day.
Thank you very much,
Thank
caller.
you very much.
One last caller. Caller, good morning. Welcome to For the Record.
Good morning. I was I'm calling in about the Constitution and the word spouse. That I think it was like a boo-boo made in the sense that we got modernized and using the modern word, and got modernized and tried to put everything up in class, in like everybody else was doing, and not and I think it messed up. But is there any way of in regards to certain things on the Constitution, the way it is written? I mean, it's a Constitution, but if the majority of the people comes and say, listen, because that word...
Well, the word spouse is not in the Constitution.
Huh?
The word spouse is not in the Constitution.
Okay. So, if it's not there, then, but it was mentioned there this morning.
Dependent is defined in the immigration law, and within the definition of dependent, spouse falls within that definition. Spouse,
right?
The word spouse.
Okay. So then, going back to the Constitution, like what we're saying is, really and truly, the immigration then does not have the immigration cannot actually override what the Constitution says.
Right, and the Constitution says that marriage is between one man and one woman.
Okay. Well, then, that's what the point that I wanted you to clear it up this morning, because a lot of people believe that one is that is in the Constitution, and then it's not actually in the Constitution. It's actually it's the guidelines of the immigration, right? So in regards to that, I think people need to sort of rest assured that there's something there that they can fall back on in Cayman that can actually stop these actions from happening, because the Constitution of the land doesn't agree for it, So that was one of the things that I wanted to say about that. Okay. Then on the other issue, on elections being in the number of people in one district and the number of people in the next district, it'll be hard to even get that going, because, for instance, if a district has 400 people to get a person in, and another one have 13, 14, 1,500 people to get a person in, that could change overnight. Like, for instance, we see the Eastern District still developing. More people are going to be moving in that area, I presume, and buying property, developing, and living in there. So over the years, that will change. And the way that it is happening, I think in the District of West Bay, I don't see a whole lot of increase going, because it seems like because of the lack of because of the oversight and not taking note of what's really happening in our district, we are actually going to be basically reducing, because most of the people that can't get jobs and a lot of the prisoners getting more full with it with the people throughout the island, but mainly Caymanians, and I think a lot of them is from West Bay. So I think there's a whole conspiracy to the indigenous Caymanian that is soon to be extinct, and the extinction is that you don't need to be dead to be extinct. You actually can be be put into prison, getting bad record, and once you go and serve your time, you can't even go out and get a job. The record stays over you for all 7, 8 years. And
Can I ask you to wrap up now, Colin?
You know, so these are the things that I talking about the election and the unfairness of it. I don't think that has much weight anyway. Okay.
Thank you very much, Colin. Just want to bring to our listeners and viewers' attention under the subhead of marriage in our Bill of Rights, Section 14, subsection 1, government shall respect the right of every unmarried man and woman of marriageable age as determined by law freely to marry a person of the opposite sex and found a family.
Right. And so just to round out that piece of the conversation today, just so it's clear, the reason you brought up that point, Mr. Connor, was that in regards to spouse, is that having that definition and having the fact that it could tie into the to the Constitution and how the Constitution is worded was simply to ensure that people understood what the Cayman Islands meant by the word spouse. Because by definition then, if you follow the Constitution, by logic, spouse then had to be in line with this particular, with the constitutional provision. But to get back to a very important point that was raised by the previous caller, I think having been around perhaps a little less time than him, but having been around nonetheless a few years here on Earth, I think West Bay has not seen our population grow as fast as, say, Bodden Town, and a lot of it has been to do with economics. The fact of the matter is, even today, what we would call an ordinary house lot, i.e. not oceanfront or not on a canal, the price is substantially different in the district of West Bay than it was traditionally in Bodden Town, and that's why Bodden Town grew. Right, families looked around and let's just use a number. If a house lot was 50,000 West Bay, and they could pick one up for 20,000, 25,000 Bodden Town, and there was that type of disparity several years ago. People moved where they could get the best deal, and be able to raise and found and raise their families to tie into the Constitution, Mr. Connor. But let's get back to a very, very important point that we opened with, and we know what happens on the talk shows. We didn't come on to talk about this issue, and we didn't come on to talk about one man, one vote, but the callers took it there, and that's great, because ultimately this is a caller-driven show, and so we have to respond to how the callers call in. But if we go back to the opening that Mr. Bush made, and we look at what is really happening, government, in my opinion, is not living in the same reality that a lot of Caymanians are. There was a well-crafted email of someone whose business was doing well, and that's great. I'm happy for every single Caymanian business that is doing well. However, what we have to recognize is that that's not the case for all Caymanian businesses. The bottom line of what we're saying is that yes, the government reduced the trade and business license fee. And so that went from what used to be around $300 to now you can get some as low as $75. Okay, so you got $200 and something savings. But the actual red tape and as we say, rigmarole that people have had to go through to set up a business and to get started, and the conflicting messages that they oftentimes get in setting up a business has been one of the big complaints that we've gotten. One of the big complaints that we've gotten is, I was with a group of people, Mr. Bush, I was about 2 weeks ago, and one of them said, "We believe right now," and this is what this is what Caymanian said. "We believe it's easier to jet set into Cayman, go meet with the Department of Commerce, and try to use their facility of being the one-stop shop. That it's easier to do that than for me." And they started giving their experience as they went to set up their small business and to get their trade and business license. And I just sat there and I just had to shake my head, because I knew that what the person was sitting there telling me, and I'm not going to call her name, but I knew that what she was saying was true. And I'm sitting there and I'm saying, wow, this is the reality that people are facing. And we need to look carefully at what we're trying to achieve when we put different stipulations around how a person goes about getting a trade and business license. Now, we have to dig though into the numbers and what the numbers are telling us is that, firstly, the budget surplus has declined for 2 years in a row. This is the government's own numbers. And so for the government to say that they have secured the finances of the country, securing finances in most people's minds would show an upward trajectory on the most important number, the surplus. How can you say you've secured the finances when 2016, as of June 2016, the surplus is down from 2015? Then, when forced to in Finance Committee, the Minister of Finance produced the actual 12-month projection, because remember, it's now an 18-month budget that was passed. When the 12-month projections, 1st of July 2016 to 30th of June 2017, we see that the surplus is down yet again. So 2 consecutive years of the surplus being down, yet the government has the audacity to say that the finances are secured. Now, let's just be very clear. That's not beating up the government. That's stating a fact. Now, as far as I'm aware, one of the most important things for anyone who's in elected office or seeking elected office is to point out the facts. This is an opinion. That's a fact. And so we see that finances of the country are not secure. The other thing that needs to be very, very clear is that of June the 30th, 2013, the country had a $60+ million surplus. So no one can say that the United Democratic Party had not turned around the finances of the country, because we had. The elections were May 22nd, 2013. By June, we'd produced a surplus. That's in the slow season of government revenue. Government didn't make enough money in that 1 month to produce a surplus. That surplus was produced coming out of our hard work and the very unpopular tax packages that we had to put together to get us out of the $80 million deficit that we inherited in 2009. That's just a fact. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking about these statistics that are being thrown out. And so the government is now focusing on gross domestic product and the growth in gross domestic product. Growing gross domestic product is good. And so I agree with the government that the growth of the gross domestic product over the last 4 years is a positive. That is a plus. I cannot deny or say that we don't give the government a tick for that. However, what we have to do is we have to analyze the gross domestic product. Gross domestic product in and of itself does not mean people are better off. It does not mean that people's individual circumstances are better off, because 2 things has to happen. We have to look at what is the per capita growth, but not only the per capita growth, we also have to look at what sectors of the economy are growing, because that then also tells us where the growth is and therefore what sectors of the population may be benefiting more than the other.
Okay. Any final comments from you, Mr. Bush, before we go?
This is final, yes. Well, see, I'm sorry that I have to end on a personal note, but I come here quite often, and Rupert Ackman has called in, and he's cut very close to being opposite side. And that's okay. Everybody has their right, democratic right to choose what side. But what I'm not going to do is to sit back and allow people to Rupert to get on any radio and criticize me wrongly for Mr. Rupert Ackerman's edification, who seems to like to tackle this theme when we're on radio, complaining about how we do our show. Let me quickly say, people have voted for McKeever Bush over the years for many reasons, but mainly people have voted for me because they trust me to speak and work for them as I have done. They have not found me a liar, nor have they found me lazy. I have my faults. I am a human being, and I like to say as a Christian I fall down, but God picks me up. I'm very outspoken when I need to speak out. The public of this country.
Informative, impartial, insightful.
This is your talk show.
1-800-534-8255. Your calls, your input. This is For the Record.